Good morning. It's June 9th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. Let's begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting in the U.S., where areas on the East Coast have been blanketed with smoke and fine dust from Canada's wildfires. The U.S. East Coast is experiencing its worst air quality ever, with the smoke now reaching down to Washington D.C. And smoky air conditions may return to New York City due to a sea breeze. South Korean leader Yoon has vowed for further support to boost the semiconductor industry. It says intensifying global chip competition is equivalent to an industrial war. South Korea lost to Italy at the FIFA U20 World Cup semifinals. The Young Tech Warriors will face Israel next Monday in the third-place playoff. Air quality in parts of the U.S. remain at hazardous levels due to smoke coming from the massive wildfires in Canada. President Joe Biden called the Canadian wildfires a stark reminder of the effects of climate change. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
For the second straight day, parts of eastern United States have been covered in fine dust and smoke caused by massive wildfires in Canada. The air quality in the country's capital reached dangerous levels, with millions refraining from outdoor activities while stocking up on essential items such as masks. According to the Washington Post on Thursday, Washington, D.C. issued a purple warning, the second worst on the air quality index. A purple warning means conditions are very harmful to the health of all people, regardless of age or if they are suffering from a respiratory illness. The D.C. mayor's office says poor air conditions could get worse and asked people to refrain from going outside as much as possible. It also asked people to wear N95 or KN95 grade masks if they needed to go outdoors. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday said in a statement that the devastating wildfires burning in Canada are another stark reminder of the impacts of climate change. He added that millions of Americans are now experiencing the effects of smoke resulting from the devastating wildfires. Biden also said that he held phone talks with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, noting that the U.S. agreed to provide additional support necessary to accelerate firefighting efforts, including in Quebec, where fires in the area are having a direct impact on the U.S. He went on to say that the Environmental Protection Agency is monitoring air quality and providing important updates, adding that he instructed Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to preemptively manage any impact on air traffic due to deteriorating air quality. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Flooding from the destruction of Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine has devastated towns downstream. And local officials in Kherson say at least 9 people have been injured by shellings as civilians evacuated. Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of shelling during the evacuations. Despite the dam's collapse, the International Atomic Energy Agency has clarified that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine is still able to pump water from a reservoir nearby, buying it more time before possibly switching to other cooling sources. The dam's operator had earlier said that reservoir could no longer supply water to the facility. Meanwhile, Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said on Thursday that Russian troops have repelled a large-scale overnight attempt by Ukraine to break through the Russian lines in the Zaporizhzhia region. South Korea's drive to boost the semiconductor industry is in full swing, with the country investing billions of dollars more to maintain its lead in chips. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon has called for nationwide efforts to protect and boost the country's chip-making competitiveness, saying the competition in the global semiconductor industry is an industrial war. This as he presided over the 17th Emergency Economy meeting with 60 industry insiders, including CEOs, scholars, and government officials on Thursday, strictly focused on the nation's chip export strength.
어찌됐든 이 반도체 전쟁에서 우리가 승리하려면은 민간의 혁신과 정부의 선도적 전략이 동시에 필요합니다. 기업과 투자, 유능한 인재들이 다 모이도록 정부가 이 제도와 제도 설계를 잘 하고 인프라를 잘 만들어야 됩니다.
Semiconductors account for a fifth of South Korea's total exports and take around 55% of its manufacturing investment. South Korean firms have led the industry's market share for the past 20 years, with companies such as Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix especially showing strength in memory chips. However, recently, it's seen hurdles with large markets such as the U.S. creating the CHIPS Act amid Washington's push and pull with Beijing, creating complications for South Korean companies' production lines, while Chinese chip makers slowly catching up with South Korea's market share. That said, President Yoon promised industry players that government support will be there.
President Yoon emphasized that semiconductors are South Koreans' livelihoods, their security, industry, and the economy itself, and called on ministers to get rid of any regulations that get in the way of the companies.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy also announced on Thursday that it's looking into injecting more than $1 billion to foster up-and-coming technology in the industry, such as power semiconductors, chips for automobiles, and advanced packaging, among other lucrative investments. In the meantime, this is the second time President Yoon specifically addressed the high-tech industry in an emergency economy meeting after batteries in April. President Yoon, in efforts to re-emphasize, while at the same time motivate the participants, said when he goes abroad for multilateral summits, leaders are looking for one-on-one opportunities with him, all because of the country's technological competitiveness. And that's all thanks to the industry leaders. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The Korea Economy Research Institute on Friday has lowered South Korea's growth outlook for this year from 1.5% to 1.3%. The institute cited a decline in consumption capacity due to high interest rates and other external factors such as overall sluggish economic growth in major economies around the world. It also said that a recovery in domestic demand will be difficult this year due to a slowdown in private consumption, facility investment, and construction investment. While the reopening of China was predicted to improve the country's economic growth this year, the institute noted that it fell short of expectations, with exports remaining sluggish. OpenAI CEO, the father of ChatGPT, Sam Altman, is visiting South Korea this week at the invitation of the country's Ministry of SMEs and Startups. His visit is timely that AI regulations are high on the agenda in countries around the world. For more, we're joined by Professor Park Joo-young from KST this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Altman said back in March that he would visit a total of 17 countries, including South Korea, UK, France, and Australia. Why is he taking his time to visit so many countries? I mean, what is his trip to Seoul about?
Yeah, so he's the CEO of the hottest outfit in tech right now, and ChatGPT has had the most impact in recent memory, both technological and psychological. So Korea would want to hear from him since it is clearly lagging in language AI like the ChatGPT. And since he has been invited by the Minister of SME, Small to Medium Enterprises and Startups, it appears that the topics discussed will circle around tech research and business opportunities for domestic companies.
Right. Like I mentioned earlier, countries and organizations around the world are looking to come up with AI-regulated rules and regulations over those worries about the side effects of the technology. Altman himself has pointed out the need for an international body to control AI like IAEA. What's your take on this?
So there is this fear regarding AI's potential harms, especially the danger when the level of automation is so high that some catastrophic decisions could be made by AI without human supervision. And some have even argued for a freeze on AI research for a few months, or as you say, an AIEA-like organization that can oversee AI development. But there are some practical issues and suspicions over these motivations. First, unlike nuclear programs that require large-scale facilities and produce detectable traces of radioactive material, AI is basically a computer software that can be made on a laptop in a coffee shop. So it is hard to fathom how the quote-unquote freezing of research can be enforced at all. Should all computers be turned off with the threat of a prison sentence? It's like banning cooking because somebody says a fire can start a nuclear reaction in the kitchen.
Right.
And second, Yeah. Second, are we really sure that the industry leaders will cut into their own leading AI by not doing what they're good at? And those who are playing catch-up like Korea, will they really be motivated to let the gap with the big boys grow by stopping for a while? So before they voluntarily take actions first, I doubt that people will be fully trusting of their words at the moment.
Right. But the European Union is looking to pass AI Act into a law within this year. Now, if it is passed, Professor, will it do anything really to tame AI-related worries and concerns? I mean, including ethical issues. What will that mean?
So the goal of the act is to limit certain uses of AI, for instance, face and emotion recognition that could infringe upon individual liberties and freedom, and ultimately harm an open and free society. So the act itself is well-intentioned, but it's still too early to conclude that all the concerns will have been addressed with a piece of legislation because AI still is a developing tech, and so I suspect that there are still so many unknown or unrecognized issues out there. So we have to keep in mind that regulations can alter the speed and direction of an innovation. So it is hard to tell the exact impact of the act on the future. So if the act stifles innovation and makes the EU fall behind the US, for instance, it could well lose support.
Then do you think because as far as I know, we don't have any regulations on AI at the moment here in South Korea, but do you think we should expect AI regulations from South Korea in the future?
So, well, Korea's economy is heavily science and tech-oriented and deeply coupled with the industrialized nations. So if they are moving in that direction, Korea will have to follow suit eventually. But seeing how far behind Korea is in some crucial area of AI, for instance, the language AI like the ChatGPT, I doubt that there's much appetite for regulation at the moment. And also, we as a society have yet to build a consensus on issues like what we do or do not want from AI, what is culturally acceptable or not. So there's still a long ways to go.
Right. All right, Professor Park Ju-young, thank you so much for your insight this morning.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Some disappointment for fans of South Korea's U20 footballers as they lost out to Italy in the competition's semi-final this morning. But despite the early hours, fans showed up in force at Gwanghwamun Sq to cheer on their team. Our Choi Soo-hyung was there.
It was an intense match. South Korea took on Italy for a place in the U20 World Cup final on Friday 6 a.m. Korea time. The Korea Football Association hosted the cheering event at Gwanghwamun Sq with the Seoul government and the official supporters of the U20 national football team, the Red Devils. And despite the early hours, the love and enthusiasm of South Korean football fans for their team. Even though the semi-final kicked off at such an early time, fans didn't hesitate to show up to cheer South Korea's U20 team at the square. The U20 World Cup is held every 2 years, but it was cancelled in 2021 due to COVID-19. The square was filled with excitement for South Korea's second consecutive U20 World Cup semi-final and a dream that they could do better than in 2019 when they lost in the final.
I think we struggled during the first half, but it seems like we'll come back in the second half and win 2-0. I hope we can make history by achieving the first ever World Cup victory for South Korea.
I'm really excited to be here in Seoul. I think the energy in the crowd is really great, and this seems like a really fun way to celebrate soccer, the U20 World Cup.
Italy, boasting their strongest squad, opened the scoring in the first half, but South Korea will all square 9 minutes later thanks to a penalty kick scored by Lee Seung-won. The goal brought fans from their seats, shouting loudly and shaking the square with their celebration. Tension, however, rose as the game went on, Italy having much of the possession. Then, with only 4 minutes remaining, Korean hearts were broken when the Italians took the lead and ultimately won the game 2-1. After the match, most of the fans tried to cheer the young Taeguk Warriors to give them a boost.
It was impressive to see our players. I was so proud and the support from the fans were fervent. Though it is disappointing, there's still the third, fourth place playoff, so I hope they gather their strength again.
Officials said as over 1,000 people gathered, the facilities were well equipped to ensure safety. Although South Korea lost the game, there is no doubt they'll be hopeful for new opportunities that lies ahead of them. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
South Korea's ruling and main opposition parties have agreed to establish a special committee on Japan's Fukushima wastewater release, and also a parliamentary probe into scandals involving the National Election Commission has been announced. Our Han Seong-woo reports.
South Korea's ruling People Power Party and its rival, the Democratic Party of Korea, have agreed to set up a special committee on Japan's plans to discharge radioactive wastewater from the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean starting this summer. Details will still have to be ironed out, but the committee will be holding parliamentary hearings that could involve the 21-member team of Korean experts who recently returned from on-site inspections of the power plant's water treatment facilities.
Whom the special committee will consist of will be decided after a corresponding motion is submitted, sometime next week during a plenary session and later passed. The members will come from both parties, and following committee-level discussions will also decide when it will conduct its activities.
The parties have also agreed on a parliamentary probe into the National Election Commission, currently mired in a nepotism scandal over allegations of employment favoritism shown towards the children of several senior NEC officials.
There was an urge to delve into everything going on with the Election Commission without any limitations on the scope of the probe. But yes, the recent employment scandal is the one that has come under the most scrutiny.
The investigation will also cover allegations that the NEC came under nearly tens of thousands of hacking attempts by North Korea last year. The commission has been suspected of failing to detect some of those attempts. Han Seong-woo, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in France, where 4 young children under the age of 3 were wounded on Thursday in a stabbing attack in the Alpine town of Annecy. Now, among the children were 1 British and 1 Dutch national. 2 adults were also wounded. Health officials say that some of the victims required surgery, but that all the children are in stable condition. A 31-year-old Syrian asylum seeker suspected of carrying out the attack was arrested on site after being overpowered by police. The suspect had refugee status in Sweden. He came to France to seek asylum but was unsuccessful. Authorities say he has no criminal background and that a terrorist motive is unlikely. Now in Sudan, nearly 300 children have been rescued from ongoing crossfire between warring military factions. 200 of the children were below the age of 2. Humanitarian groups said on Thursday that the children and 70 caregivers were evacuated to the city of Wad Madani from the Maigoma orphanage in the capital of Khartoum. They were trapped by fighting between troops from the Sudanese military and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces since mid-April. Since the start of the conflict, over 70 children have died at the state-run orphanage from hunger and illness. The rescue comes after another 97 children were evacuated from Maigoma and other small orphanages over the weekend by local activists. Now, the planet could see hotter weather this and next year as the El Niño weather system has begun. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said on Thursday that the weather phenomenon arrived 1 or 2 months earlier than usual. It's likely to bring drought to Australia, increased rain in the southern United States, and lead to a weakened monsoon season in India. El Niño could continue until next spring, after which its effects are expected to lessen. The group added that there's a 56% chance it will reach strong levels and a 25% chance it will be supersized. Scientists say the weather system may lead to new record high temperatures in 2024. And finally, the largest ruby ever to go on auction has been sold for a record-breaking $34.8 million. The 55.2 carat ruby went under the hammer on Thursday at the magnificent jewels auction held by Sotheby's in New York. Called Estrella de Fura, the stone has been described as the most valuable and important ruby ever to come to market. It was discovered in Mozambique in July last year. The sale beat the previous all-time high set in 2015, when a 25.6 carat stone called the Sunrise Ruby sold for $30.3 million.
Good morning. Overnight rain has let up in most areas, not to mention in Pocheon and other parts of Gyeonggi-do province were under a heavy rain advisory overnight. But now it's a bright and refreshing start to the day. Meanwhile, parts of Gangwon-do province will see 5 to 30 millimeters of more rain through the morning. Then there will be passing rain in inland areas of Gyeongsang-do provinces this afternoon. So it will be hotter and sunnier today for the central regions, with temperatures hiking to the upper 20s again, and southern inland areas will be as hot as yesterday. Strong UV rays will beam down with a high ozone level during the day, and those in Gyeongsang-do provinces need to brace for heat, sunshine, and passing rain today. Meanwhile, air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day. Then we'll have frequent rain in the forecast this weekend. On Saturday, central regions, Jeollabuk-do and Gyeongsang-puk-do provinces will see rain, while the capital area will receive rain around lunchtime into the evening. Then on Sunday, there will be scattered rain nationwide. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That'll do it for us for today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.